Hello, friends. I know I am speaking at a time when the coronavirus has shattered our taken for granted world. It's a crisis, a severe crisis confronting the entire humankind. Doctors, social activists, medical practitioners, civil society activists, policymakers, day and night have been working, thinking about it, and trying their best to come out of the present crisis. At this moment, when because of the lockdown, many of us are confined to our rooms, and I wonder, is it also the time to contemplate and to reflect? And as I begin to contemplate and reflect, there are certain ideas that come to my mind and which I wish to share with you. The ideas that come to my mind as I look at and reflect on the coronavirus, the crisis that it has posed, and the way it has shattered our confidence and our taken for granted world. And it is in this context there are three issues that I wish to touch upon. Number one, possibly this is the time to realize that the way modernity as a project has asked us to look at the world, that perception, that self-perception of modernity is in severe crisis. There are two aspects to this project of modernity, which because of the constraint of time, I just wish to touch upon. The first is that the very self-confident, triumphant agenda of modernity, that with its reason, with its technoscience, and with its gospel of unlimited growth and progress, it can establish complete human supremacy over the earth. And human beings and man is the master of the universe. As a result, modernity has created a strange self-perception of the human being that we are the proud conquerors of the world. And today at this juncture, when from Italy to United States, from China to Spain, from India to Iran, every part of the world is being affected by coronavirus, we do realize that we are not the masters of the world. Instead, we are like dust particles. So the question that I begin to ask myself and which I wish to share with you is that, is it the time that we begin to redefine ourselves and redefine that entire project of modernity from aggressive, self-confident, proud conquerors and the notion that we are the masters of the world to humble wanderers. And when we seek to see ourselves as humble wanderers, then possibly we begin to make sense, and with a great degree of humility, we begin to understand the inherent uncertainty of life. The coronavirus has made us realize that life cannot be predicted, and everything cannot be predicted through our science, through our reason, and through our rationality, and through the notion of progress. There is a huge domain of uncertainty and the mystery in existence. And to live life meaningfully is to acknowledge this domain of uncertainty and to engage with this mystery. One reason why, as children of modernity, we are also shaken and afraid today, because modernity has deprived us of that education, of that urge to make sense and to understand and to acknowledge with all humility the inherent uncertainty and the mystery of existence. So that's the first point that I wish to share with you, that is it the time that we begin to see the limits to the project of modernity. My second issue is related to the notion of social distancing. And if there is a community transmission, then the danger of the epidemic becomes severe. And as a result, the policymakers, the doctors are not wrong when they speak of social distancing, and possibly social distancing is one of the ways to combat this epidemic. I do agree with that. But I wish to add something more to it. Can this occasion of social distancing be also transformed into a very positive notion of social caring and the ethics of care and engaged responsibility. Imagine the term distancing. Already in modern times, a lot of distancing has already been taken place. Our urban spaces are being characterized by heartless indifference, public apathy, and huge degree of anonymity. And moreover, the techno hallucination that the new gadgets seem to have created that has also confined human beings to the solitary cells, and we indeed live in a lonely crowd despite thousands of followers and subscribers in our Twitter and YouTube. Some kind of social distancing already exists amid us. Now, the question is at this moment, when because of the crisis that the coronavirus has led to, we are forced to be confined to our solitary apartments and the rooms, can we rethink, can we transform the physical distance into an act of new ethics of care? And is it possible for us now to use technology for the first time in a much more human, creative fashion? Is it possible for me now, despite the physical distance, to connect to the world? For instance, when the other day I talked to a friend of mine who cannot afford the luxury of staying in room because his wife suffering from cancer has to undergo chemotherapy and he has to take his wife to the hospital. Now, is it possible for me to take the mobile and to talk to him? Is it possible for me to talk to a distant friend who stays alone in a suburb in Bombay and talk to him unconditionally? Is it possible to write a long letter to a friend I have not communicated with for quite some time? So is it that the physical distance can be transformed into an opportunity, into an ethics of care, connecting others? Imagine, for instance, the contradictions of our age. Some of us, urban middle class, professional class, who could afford to work from home. But we also live in a society with heightened inequality where the large section of people cannot afford to have that luxury. And as a result, the crisis we have already begun to notice and see the migrant workers, their economic misery, and another fear that they have that it is not just the coronavirus, they might die out of joblessness and out of hunger. Now, can we think of them? Can we relate to them? Can we engage in certain activities that, despite the physical distance, could enable us to connect with them? Can the human souls transcend the barriers of physical distance? And hence, social distancing, apart from being reduced into an act of self-centric insulation, can be transformed into an act of relatedness and an ethics of care. That's the second question that I begin to raise, and I believe this is the thing that we ought to contemplate on. And herein lies my third and the final point. The question that I raise is that post-coronavirus, how do we live? Possibly one day the vaccine will be ready, our hospitals will be equipped with ventilators, and we would be medically equipped to handle with that, and the coronavirus would disappear. But then how do we live? How do we rethink, redefine our economy, politics, and culture? Should we continue to live the way we have been living, with reckless consumerism, with technological violence, with human aggression, with complete disruptive relationship between human species and the biodiversity and the natural system? Or do we learn something positive, something life affirming, and redefine our existence for a more meaningful, life sustaining, positive engagement with the world? And instead of seeing ourselves as the conquerors and the masters of the world, we, together with that entire natural system, seek to live and create a better world. That is a question that confronts us. But at times I fear, and my anxiety is that possibly history also teaches us a one lesson, that we never learn anything substantial from history. And if that happens, that would be the really tragic point. If after coronavirus, post coronavirus world, again we do the same mistake of ruthless economic globalization, technological violence, environmental disaster, and the greed of capitalism, then we would make a big mistake. My danger, the feeling, my fear, what I feel, and that is where in lies the dangerous moment that we could end up eventually creating a society based on high degree of surveillance and an authoritarian state now through the logic of this virus might find another excuse and another reason for intensifying its surveillance machinery, and it might erect huge walls of separation between the privileged and the underprivileged. And the illness and the disease might become more and more stigmatized, and another sense of untouchability might erupt in society. Now, these are the difficult times, and under these difficult circumstances, how we restore the values of compassion, ethics of care, austerity, non consumptionist mode of living, and that ability that enables us to engage with the mystery of life, the uncertainty of existence, and to relate ourselves to the rhythm of life and death. This remains a fundamental question. And these are the moments of reflection. And I urge all of you to reflect on that and to think of that. Thank you for listening to me at this turning point of human history.